Here is the complete script, fully rewritten with the setting changed to the United States-Mexico border region, specifically a small city in South Texas near the Rio Grande, all names adjusted to feel natural in that context, headings removed, promotional parts removed, typos corrected, and the story smoothed into one continuous, heartfelt narrative. It was a warm Saturday morning in downtown Laredo, Texas, just a few miles from the Rio Grande and the bridge to Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. The air carried the smell of fresh pan dulce from the bakery next door and the faint diesel scent of trucks crossing the border. Sunlight poured through the big front windows of a little cafe called Rosa's Brew, stripping the tile floor and the bright turquoise walls with gold. In the corner by the window sat Evan Morales, 36, a single dad with tired brown eyes and the quiet strength of someone who had carried too much for too long. His old work jacket was patched at the elbows, and his hands were rough from years pouring concrete and framing houses along the border. He stirred 2 packets of sugar into his café de olla while his 8-year-old daughter, Hannah, colored a unicorn on the back of a paper placemat. Across the room sat Isabel Isa Sanchez, early 30s, dark green eyes, cream trench coat that probably cost more than Even made in a month. To everyone else she was just a striking woman sipping coffee and checking emails. Nobody in Rosa's Brew knew she was Isabel Sanchez, billionaire CEO of Sanchez and Associados, the real estate empire that built half the warehouse and housing developments from San Diego to Brownsville. She had come down from Dallas for the weekend, craving one morning where nobody asked for a selfie or a quote. She was refilling her cup when 2 loud college guys in designer sneakers barreled through the door, laughing too hard, smelling like last night's party. One of them slammed into Isa so hard her cup flew out of her hand and shattered on the tile. Coffee splashed across her coat. "Watch where you are going, Princesa," the taller one sneered, already turning away. The cafe went quiet. The girl behind the counter froze. Isa felt the heat rise in her face. She was used to boardrooms, not public humiliation. She opened her mouth and closed it again. Then Even stood up. He eased Hannah's chair back, walked over, and planted himself between the guys and Isa. "Apologize," he said, calm but loud enough that every head turned. The tall one laughed. "And who are you, man?" "Just somebody who was raised better than that. Say you're sorry." There was no threat in his voice, just steel. The guy sized Even up, broad shoulders, scarred knuckles, the kind of calm that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes next, and muttered something that might have been an apology before he and his friend shuffled out. A couple of the regulars started clapping. Someone in the back whistled. Isa looked at Even, stunned. He didn't know she owned half the skyline in 3 states. He'd just seen a woman being treated like dirt and decided that wasn't happening on his watch. "Thank you," she said softly, dabbing at her sleeve with a napkin he handed her. "Nobody deserves that," he replied. "You okay?" She nodded. "I am now." They talked for a few minutes, easy things. The heat, the ruined coat, the unicorn Hannah had just finished coloring. When Hannah shyly offered the drawing, Isa took it like it was made of gold. After Even and Hannah left, Isa sat back down, staring at the unicorn on the table. Something in her chest felt lighter than it had in years. That night, in her hotel suite overlooking the river, she kept replaying the moment. She asked her assistant to find out who the man was, not to buy him, not to own him, just because some chances feel like they're handed to you by something bigger than yourself. A week later, a black Suburban pulled up to the construction site on the edge of town where Evan was working. Dust swirled around luxury tires that had no business being there. Isa stepped out in sunglasses and a simple navy dress. The foreman yelled, "Morales. Somebody here to see you." Evan wiped sweat and cement dust off his hands, walked over, and stopped dead when he recognized her. "Senorita from the cafe," he said, half smiling, unsure what else to call her. "Isa," she corrected. "Evan, right?" He nodded. "I came to say thank you the right way," she said. "My company is starting a big affordable housing project along the border, Laredo, McAllen, Brownsville. Good pay, real benefits, hours that let a man be home for his daughter. I want you running one of the crews." Evan blinked like the sun was too bright. "Why me?" "Because you stood up when you didn't have to. People like you shouldn't have to choose between feeding your kid and keeping your dignity." He took the job. The difference was immediate. Steady paycheck, health insurance, paid evenings. For the first time in years, he could breathe. Hannah started Saturday art classes at the community center. Their little apartment filled with color and laughter again. Isa found reasons to visit the job sites, progress meetings, safety checks, bringing aguas frescas for the crew. Mostly she came to talk to Evan. They talked about losing people too soon, his wife in a wreck on the interstate, her dad when she was 12. They talked about what it's like to raise a little girl who still believes the world is mostly good. They talked until talking turned into something neither of them had been looking for. One spring morning she invited them to the groundbreaking of the new project, 50 free homes for single-parent families, funded quietly, no press conference, no cameras. At the end of her short speech she looked straight at Evan and Hannah in the front row. "This whole thing started," she said, voice catching just a little, "because one man reminded me that kindness isn't a luxury. It's the only thing that ever really builds anything worth having." Hannah squeezed his hand and whispered, "That's you, Daddy." Afterward, when the crowd thinned out, and the South Texas sun was high and golden, Isa walked over. "You changed more than my morning that day," she told him quietly. He smiled, the slow, real smile that had first made her heart stumble. "And you gave me a tomorrow I stopped believing in." A year later, on a quiet evening with the windows open and the sound of cicadas drifting in, Isa sat across the kitchen table from Evan while Hannah colored at the counter. Isa reached for his hand. "You never asked who I was that day in the cafe," she said. "Didn't need to," he answered, lacing his rough fingers through hers. "I just saw somebody worth standing up for." Sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks or private jets. Sometimes it just walks into a little border town cafe carrying a unicorn drawing and wearing an old work jacket, and decides to stay.